Attention, please.
The holiday season is upon us, and the world was just about opening up when news of the new COVID variant, Omicron, also classified as a variant of concern by the World Health Organization, has put a spanner in the works for travelers across the globe, as well as the battered and bruised travel industry that was just about showing signs of revival. Parts of Europe have gone back into lockdown, while Morocco, Israel, and Japan have shut their borders once again. So, what is the approach of the Indian government? Well, the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare issued guidelines for international arrivals on November 28th, and these standard operating procedures will be valid with effect from December 1st, 2021. Some of these are standard guidelines that passengers flying to India have been following, like submit a self-declaration form on the Air Suvidha portal with a negative COVID-19 RT PCR report. The test should have been conducted within 72 hours prior to undertaking the journey. Submit a declaration with respect to the authenticity of the report, where one could be liable for criminal prosecution if the report was found to be forged. And undertaking on the portal before the journey that passengers would abide by the decision of the appropriate government authority to undergo home or institutional quarantine or self-health monitoring as warranted. COVID-appropriate behavior has to be followed during the flights, and if any passenger is showing signs of COVID symptoms, they would be isolated as per protocol. Thermal screening will also be carried out for all passengers in India, and your Air Suvidha form, either in print or electronic form, has to be shown to the officials at the airport, who will also advise passengers to download the Arogya Setu app. So what's new? Since the Omicron variant has been discovered, passengers from specific countries have been identified for additional follow-up. The list includes countries in Europe, including the UK, South Africa, Brazil, Bangladesh, Botswana, China, Mauritius, New Zealand, Singapore, Hong Kong, Israel, and Zimbabwe. This list is of course dynamic and subject to change as the situation on ground evolves, and can also be found on the respective websites of the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Ministry of External Affairs, and the Air Suvidha portal. Now, here are some additional measures that passengers from the countries I just mentioned will have to go through. Before boarding, passengers originating or transiting from at-risk countries shall be informed by the airlines that they will have to undergo post-arrival testing. These tests have to be paid for by passengers upon arrival. Passengers will be required to wait for their test results at the arrival airport before leaving or taking a connecting flight. If the test results are negative, passengers have to home quarantine for 7 days with another test on the 8th day, followed by self-monitoring. That's again if the tests are negative. If a passenger at the airport is found positive upon arrival, then the samples would be sent for genomic testing at a government-approved lab, and they would have to be managed at a separate isolation facility and treated as per standard protocol, and contact tracing would also be conducted, which includes co-passengers seated in the same row, 3 rows in the front and 3 rows behind, along with the identified cabin crew. If a passenger tests positive during their home quarantine period, that is when they take their test on the 8th day, then all their community contacts would be subject to quarantine for 14 days as well, and tested as per the ICMR protocol. Passengers who arrive from a country other than those that I mentioned earlier will be allowed to leave the airport and shall self-monitor their health for 14 days post-arrival, but do not have to quarantine. A subsection of the passengers, about 5% of the total flight, will be chosen at random by the concerned airlines for testing at the airport upon arrival. The cost of testing these passengers will be borne by the Ministry of Civil Aviation. It is important to note that children under the age of 5 are exempt from pre- and post-arrival testing, and if found symptomatic for COVID-19 upon arrival or during the home quarantine period, will have to undergo treatment as per existing protocols. Stay safe, and thank you for watching.